Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, out of Voice of Radio. So today, we need to look at something which is genuinely, really surprising. We need to look at a Hawlucha card. Now, one of the things that's not surprising about this is that it's being given out at tournaments over in Japan. You kind of knew that already, because the second you saw it, you saw the Pokémon card gym logo on it, and that basically tells you it's a gym promo in Japan, which means it's given out at tournaments over in Japan. That's not surprising. The artwork being particularly awesome, also not surprising. We are truly in the golden age of artwork in the Pokémon TCG. That's not surprising. What is surprising, however, and it is legit surprising, this is a really, really, really good card. And we don't see that very often. Also, if anyone wants to get slightly terrified, I considered trying to make a collection of Japanese promos for Scarlet and Violet. I have since realised that's a bad idea. I'm going to complete the Japanese sets like I've been doing for over a year now, but I think Japanese sets, not including secret rares, is the collection I'm going for. All the main cards, a few secret rares, I'm not rich. This is promo 34. Scarlet and Violet isn't out yet, and they've already shown us promo 34. It is going to get ridiculous. And this is not going to be an expensive promo. Incidentally, the vast majority of them are going to be very cheap promos. But there's going to be a few ridiculous promos, and there's going to be a ridiculous number of promos. And you know what, ladies and gentlemen? I think I'm pretty good. But the surprising thing is, this is a very good promo. Like the one we saw the other day, we saw Cyclizar EX. And I'm not saying Cyclizar EX isn't a cool card, and I'm not saying I don't want a copy of it, because it is, and I do. But I do think it's fair to say Cyclizar EX is not a particularly good card. 3 energy, 180 can't attack next turn, 1 energy, 30 damage, grab an energy from your deck and attach it to this Pokemon, and it's not a particularly good card. But that's what we expect. We don't expect promos to be particularly good cards, because they generally aren't. This is an exception. So what does it actually do? Well, I actually did the translation myself. And I have checked with a lovely Antoine Billet to make sure I didn't do a silly, but I did do this translation myself. Now, the attack doesn't take any translating here, obviously. What we've got here is 3 energy, 70 damage, which is roundly terrible. Like, there's no real saving grace here. It's a low amount of damage. It's a high amount of energy. This attack sucks. It's really not good. But the ability is great. The ability says that once during a turn, when you play this card from your hand onto your bench, you may choose 2 of your opponent's bench Pokemon and put 1 damage counter on each of them. It's great. It is the spiritual successor to Galarian Zigzagoon. Now, it has got 1 giant advantage over Galarian Zigzagoon, and it's got 1 giant disadvantage when compared to Galarian Zigzagoon. But the thing you need to remember is, in both Japan and over here, we are hitting the rotation when we get Scarlet and Violet released. We're rotating out the first year of Sword and Shield, and that includes Galarian Zigzagoon. So we are going to compare this to Galarian Zigzagoon, just as a, you're all familiar with that card, I'm assuming, most of you are at least, so it makes a nice comparison, but we're not going to be choosing between these cards. There is no choice to be made, because Galarian Zigzagoon won't be here. So Galarian Zigzagoon, you only get to drop 1 damage counter, that's the downside for the Zigzagoon, but you get to drop it on the active. Hawlucha, you get to drop 2 damage counters, but you don't get to drop on the active. And that can be a big deal, because how many times have we seen Galarian Zigzagoon be used? How many times have you done it yourself, where you use Galarian Zigzagoon to ping the active and then get a KO? The answer is probably a bunch. I have. And I didn't even play Galarian Zigzagoon that much, and I've still done it a lot. So you're going to need to look forward a bit. You're going to need to be dropping damage counters a little bit earlier to try and get yourself to those magic numbers where you get the KOs. It means your opponent is going to be able to play around it a little bit more, and it means that if you desperately need that damage on the active, it's not going to work unless you've got ways to move damage counters and all of that, which gets a little bit awkward. Unless, of course, you're playing Radiant Alakazam. The combo between this and Radiant Alakazam is beautiful, because Radiant Alakazam says once during your turn, you may move up to 2 damage counters from one of your opponent's Pokemon to another. So what you can do here is drop 1 damage counter on each of 2 bench Pokemon, but then use Radiant Alakazam to move it to their active. It's a bit of an awkward combo, but if you really want to hit the active with Hawlucha, this is probably your best option. It's a basic Pokemon, etc. Not saying you can't hit the active. I'm saying that hitting the active is actually kind of awkward. I mean, gutted, I suppose. Point is, really, really good ability, and is going to see play, because one of my mantras throughout my time talking about the Pokemon TCG, extra damage is always good. Now, that I know there are some rare examples where it's not. But generally speaking, extra damage is always good. This is extra damage. If you're just a little tiny bit away from getting that KO, this is what gets you over the hump. This is what puts you to that stage where you're actually getting the KO. It's a very, very big deal, and I absolutely love it. And it's going to see play just like Galarian Zigzagoon saw play. Just remember, it doesn't hit the active, but there are ways around that they're just a bit awkward. One of the annoying things is, in the same way that Galarian Zigzagoon is rotating out, so is Scoop Up Net. And Scoop Up Net is so good with cards like this. But it was in Rebel Clash. It's got a deregulation mark. It is rotating out. Lets you pick it up so you can put it back down again to reuse it. And that is a bigger problem here. This is one of the bigger problems. Because with Galarian Zigzagoon, how many times did you chain it with Scoop Up Net? The answer was probably a lot. That's not the case here. You're not going to be chaining this anywhere near as easily. And that, for me, is one of the bigger problems. It sucks. I don't like it. But that's the thing that really gives me pause about this. But I still think it's a pretty gosh darned awesome ability. And I do think it's going to see a whole bunch of play. And I, for one, am absolutely delighted. I do think it is, let's say, at least a 4 WOSY card. Not sure if I'm quite ready to call it a 5 WOSY card because of the fact that it can't be reused that much. But it is still a very, very good card. Is it going to be super rare? Nah, you're good. Over in Japan, there is this, and there is a coin. And it's nice and simple. First time you play a game, you get a card. A stamp card. The second time, you get a Pokemon coin, and the third time, you get this dude. So, basically, you play, like, 3 games. It's a stamp rally. You play 3 games at a store, you get this. It's not a big prize card or anything like that. It's not going to be super rare. It's a kind of promo where there's going to be many, many, many of them sent to stores, and they're going to be pretty easy to get hold of. How are we going to get this? I don't know. They could just whack it in a set. They do that sometimes with promos. This is the kind of thing that would actually go really nicely as a 3-pack blister promo or as a 1-pack blister promo. Either of those would work. That would be fine. One way or another, I feel pretty gosh darn happy that we are going to be getting this. So I don't really mind one way or t'other. I believe we're going to get this card. Well, I mean, we will get this card. We get all the cards. But it's either going to be put in a set or it's going to be a promo. But for us, we don't get tournament promos like Japan does like that. So what is going to be instead is it is going to be something along the lines of a 1 or a 3-pack blister promo with a set or just in the set. So that's absolutely fine. But I do need to mention before we finish, somebody at the Pokemon Company, or I suppose that the people designing the game more so than TPCI, loves Hawlucha. Firstly, this is the 13th Hawlucha card we've had. And none of them are reprints. This is the 13th separate Hawlucha card we've had since it came around in X and Y. That's weird. That's too many. But you'll notice that recently we had Radiant Hawlucha, which is a pretty good card. And we didn't get that many Radiant Pokemon. But we've also had a bunch of other cards. We had the one that came around in Steam Siege, that when you bench it, makes your opponent switch their active. That was kind of cool. We had Hawlucha EX, which admittedly wasn't a great card, but Hawlucha got an EX. That in itself is weird. And the first ever Hawlucha that we got back in Furious Fists was firstly a great card. I played it in a bunch of decks. Free retreat, and for a single energy did 60 damage to a Pokemon EX. Did not hit for weakness. But it also gave me one of my favourite memories in the Pokemon TCG, because I played a mirror match at one point with Garchomp, where my opponent didn't play any switching cards. So I just used my Gabite, I whacked it in the active, and just attacked. But it did 20 damage on Hawlucha has resistance. So I won game 1, and in game 2, I just put my Gabite active and told my opponent, I'm going to attack into your Hawlucha for the rest of the game. I'm going to do no damage. You can't retreat. I know you don't play any switching cards because I saw your whole deck last turn. I know you can't attack me because I'm not an EX. And I'm not going to slow play. But we both know that between basically drawing my entire deck while I'm attacking and then using supporter cards to shuffle it back in, I can sit here for legitimately 150 turns, maybe more. There is absolutely no way this game is going to finish. But if you want to play it out, I'm happy to. And my opponent said, you know what, I'm going to concede, want to play a friendly game. And we played a friendly game. And it was fun. And that is one of my favourite Pokemon memories. One of the dumbest ways I've ever won a game. And for that, I will always be grateful to Hawlucha. More importantly, for the time being, this new Hawlucha is legitimately good. And I think it's going to see a whole bunch of play. Promos are generally not good. We do not expect promos to be good. It is weird when promos like this are good, because it's just like, it really is just a random tournament promo, but it's really good, and I'm very excited. But now I want to hear from you guys. Let me know what you think about this. Go nuts in the comment section, but be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at @TheWasi. That's where we talk Pokemon and card games and Pokemon card games and all kinds of fun things. And please do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCGradio, where you can support the channel. You can get some bonus podcasts where I answer all of your questions. You can join a Discord and chat Pokemon or anything else. And you can get shout-outs on the channel like the lovely Kiridan, who I believe has been a support of ours for almost 2 years now and is a very lovely person. So thank you very much for all the support and for being a very lovely person. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.